Hi, everypony. Well, I'm just going to get right into this. As far as Simple Ways is concerned, Rarity was wrong about everything. From the kind of festival that represents Ponyville, to her priorities, to her self-worth, and most importantly, to who she should be paired with! Far more seriously now, Rarity was in perfect form this episode. The idea of her falling in love with someone based on their reputation is perfectly in character, encompassing everything from her obsessiveness to her tendency to ideal other people or portions of culture, and her romantic viewpoint of the world. Watching her try to change herself to catch his attention was equally beautiful because she oversimplified the process in her head, thinking it would be a simple role reversal to make him fall in love. The moral fit her shakeable identity well, and how she snapped out of her funk was well done. A nice callback to her and Applejack in Look Before You Sleep, with roles of the argument reversed. I loved Rarity this episode, and it was extremely refreshing after Rarity takes Manhattan. So which one next? Rarity's rival or love interest? I think I'd like to dive straight into the love interest since I found him to be an extremely satisfying side character. The thing about Trenderhoof is that it's very obvious where his motivation comes from and what his purpose was, but we aren't bludgeoned with it, he isn't vilified, and we got some interesting lines out of him. Especially that one line which shows the mildest signs of stereotyping existing between the races of Equestria. Now for the object of his affection, Applejack. Is there really anything to be said? She's annoyed as possible the entire time because the other two are incapable of being productive, and when Rarity takes things too far, Apple Jewel brings her down a peg. I will admit that this is the portrayal of Applejack I prefer most. The hard worker who has a level head but can get frustrated, not to mention enough playfulness and inventiveness to help fix things. So, the moral. It's one of those morals that I completely agree with and I think was well done. It's definitely something that little girls should be taught. Guess I just care about everything else more, especially since the episode made the moral so easy to spot. And that's it. There's nothing else to talk about, especially not those last two things that force me to acknowledge one another and I refuse to talk about! Fine. You're lucky I'm not willing to do anything halfway. I can't stand Spike this episode. There's nothing to suggest that he should be acting this passively about Rarity having a massive crush on some pony else. It's terrible to watch and they don't even keep it consistent since he still goes goo goo eyes when Rarity twists him around her hoof. The worst part is that you sit there expecting him to do or say something since he is still acting caring, you still have him looking exasperated about this, and he's still hanging around her. The only good portrayal of him is that he sticks around when Rarity gives up her fashionable look, implying there's more to their relationship than her being beautiful. However, he's still just helping out rather than doing things. It gets distracting to have him around, and that's not how you should treat the main romantic plot the show has. Speaking of which, the last thing to talk about is the idea of the love interest this episode. Obviously, MLP hasn't touched on this kind of thing very often. Before now, it's only been Sparity and Twilight and Flash Sentry. I like the idea of a new love interest, and this episode handled in a way I thoroughly enjoyed and fits the series. However, Josh Haber impressed me in Castlemania and has done so again here, because it's not just simple lust or affection. In Rarity's case, she had become obsessed with someone who had a status in society similar to what she had been aiming for, becoming enthralled with everything he wrote about because a lot of it still had to do with the world she wanted to enter. She became some pony who loved the idea of the man, and wouldn't care how he acted unless it completely destroyed her image of him, something the still intelligent and well-speaking traveler didn't do. On Trenderhoof's part though, he had fallen in love with the idea and knowledge he gained about farm life. He wasn't so much in love with Applejack, but more so in love with the romantic vision of farm and country life he'd built up over all of his travels. Applejack simply embodied all of these ideas and gave direction to his many passions. That's why the moral shouldn't apply to him at all. Applejack was a fleeting passion that was only part of what attracted him to the farm, and he changed himself to match the farm, something he wanted to try. He simply had unrealistic expectations, expecting to be offered a place on the farm and in its life, including Applejack's, because of his passion. Not getting Applejack, though, did offer him a reason to rethink the hasty decision and get him back to the thing that had filled his days. However, it was not him attempting to change himself that made Applejack disinterested, it was simply who he was. So, time for some fanboying. Pinkie is not Josh's strong point, showing signs of just using her as a silly character this time, especially since we get this little bit of animation. I hope that was just the animators. Oh good Luna, is that Pinkamena. No pony knows what this festival is about, do they? I do not find this sexy, but I do find it hilarious that Trenderhoof does. I don't get this outfit, but the show has proven again that they can't give Rarity a bad looking haircut. This is Linespace saying, forever alone and happy to be that way.